What's up, everybody? Happy Thursday night to you. Welcome in. It is Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live. I'm Josh Helmer here, your host tonight. Iowa at the voice of college football. Josh Helmer, normally joined by Chris Meglio, but he's in the midst of trying to get the car situation, straightened out. So just me hanging out with you tonight on what is our call-in show. Hope everybody's having a nice Thursday here at the end of the month of June, as we are, inside 70 days until kickoff of this college football season. Good past couple of recruiting days for the Iowa Hawkeyes. We got more good news yesterday. Julian Manson, the four-star, has committed to the Iowa Hawkeyes. Julian Manson, of course, a legacy Iowa recruit. He is the son of former Iowa quarterback Jason Manson, who now serves as the current Iowa Director of Player Development. He is a four-star recruit, is one Julian Manson, a linebacker, obviously, as you could see from the graphic right there. And Julian Manson joining recent commit for Iowa, Kason Thomas, a couple of backers in recent days that Iowa has added to its 2026 recruiting class. Julian Manson, flipping on the tape, this kid can fly around the football field. He already looks the part very early in his career. 6'4", 225 pounds. He will add more good weight to his frame as he goes. Obviously, he comes from good stock. His dad, again, Jason Manson, the current Iowa Director of Player Development, so former quarterback for the Hawkeyes. Dad knows what this looks like, how you get to that next level and how you continue to become a great Hawkeye. So big-time get for Iowa on the recruiting trail. The Hawkeyes winning out in this recruitment as Julian Manson chooses Iowa over offers from Kansas State, Arizona, Miami, and Minnesota. Kansas State for Julian Manson was regarded as the big competition here. Late in this recruitment, Miami was considered to be a threat for the services of one Julian Manson, but the official visit to Miami never totally materialized, which was great news. Great news for Iowa. You didn't want Julian Manson making his way down to Miami and for the Hurricanes to be able to make that in-person recruiting pitch. So Manson over the weekend, a part of that big group of visitors for Iowa. And we told you on Monday, on the heels of Kason Thomas committing to Iowa, that be on the lookout. Maybe Iowa could have another linebacker in short order to add to their class, and they've done so with the commitment of Julian Manson. Again, he picks Iowa over Kansas State. Miami, again, a late contender in this recruitment, but they didn't get him on campus. Minnesota was in that mix. Julian Manson also had offers from Kent State, from Miami of Ohio, New Mexico, North Dakota State, and interest from all over the place. You wonder if some of these other Power 4 schools with Julian Manson understood that he was an Iowa Hawkeyes legacy recruit, that dad both played at and now works for the Iowa Hawkeyes football department as the Director of Player Development, and maybe that scared some other Power 4 programs away from getting very involved in Julian Manson's recruitment. Maybe you start focusing attention, recruitment resources in other directions where you feel like you have a better chance to land a commit. So Julian Manson, though, he did have interest from a number of other schools that weren't named: Iowa, K-State, Arizona, Miami, and Minnesota. I know sometimes fans say, well, why were only a certain number of schools involved? Well, Manson had, again, interest from Illinois, Iowa State, Missouri, Nebraska, Northwestern, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, Penn State, USC, and Wisconsin. Those programs didn't extend that offer, but they were certainly in the mix for Julian Manson, who last season at Iowa City West, in-state kid, he's regarded by On3 as the top in-state product in the state of Iowa. 86.5 tackles a season ago at Iowa City West. He also, like many high school prospects, two-way player. He will play wide receiver and did for Iowa City West, had 52 grabs for 867 yards, 13 touchdowns a season ago. Watching the huddle tape for one, Julian Manson, love the explosion, love the ability to get downhill and to wrap up. And he can cover. He can get out in space and cover guys. Looks like he's relatively comfortable getting out in space and in covering, which is not always the case for young linebackers. But Julian Manson looks like somebody that will be able to have some of those coverage skills. You flip on that high school tape and he'll get out there and he'll break up a pass or two, which in today's day and age of college football, a linebacker, you need somebody that not only can maybe be that traditional Mike for you and get downhill, but also can get out in space and go cover a tight end, go cover maybe a wide receiver, break up a pass or two here and there. And I see in Julian Manson some of the traits to do that on the coverage side. So looks like a big-time get. He is the highest-rated player in this class. If you're looking at the On3 recruiting rankings, he's very, very highly regarded. Julian Manson is by On3. He's ranked 80th nationally over there by On3. He's a 4-star commit, the number 6 linebacker in the nation. Again, the number 1 player in the state of Iowa. So this is a big-time get. You always feel like in-state players are folks that you need to lock up and get into the class. You don't want those in-state folks to get away on you. And for the Hawkeyes' sake, in this instance with Julian Manson, they locked the state borders down and they got the top player in the state into the class. Looked like just my very naive tape evaluation that he could diagnose some plays a little bit better at times, that, obviously you get to where you're working with Seth Wallace, Phil Parker, this defensive staff, that they can get him seeing things and taking better angles at times over the course of his Iowa career. That was one area to me that it looked like maybe Julian Manson could shore up a little bit, but he's a big-time talent. He looks the part already, 6'4", 225, had offers and interest from all over the place. Here's what 24/7 Sports' Alan True had to say about Julian Manson. For those of you watching along tonight on Iowa at the Voice of College Football, who does Julian Manson remind us of? What are the recruitniks out there saying about him? Alan True, quote, "I think when we project him to defense with that frame, his athletic background, and the nose for the football he shows on tape, they all translate very well. He runs plays down. He can play some traditional Mike, but also out on the edge and out in space. He's just a big, versatile athlete with a lot of tools. For an on-roster comparison, I think maybe Joseph Anderson in terms of a longer frame, a varied athletic and positional background, and similar growth potential. The difference is I could see Julian Manson playing some traditional linebacker where I couldn't see Joseph Anderson doing that." So that was 24/7 Sports' Alan True, his comparison to the current roster for one Julian Manson. Big-time pickup. The Iowa class keeps growing. It doesn't sound like the Hawkeyes are totally done with linebackers in this class. You've got Kason Thomas just the other day. Now you've added Julian Manson to that group. Billy Wavoda out of Georgia is another linebacker that the Hawkeyes are pursuing. And as we start thinking about that Iowa linebacker picture ahead, and I'm not talking in 2025 where you've got Jaden Harrell, you've got Carson Shire. Beyond that, as we project forward for the Hawkeyes, who are some of those names that are in that mix moving forward? You've got Jaden Montgomery, who is set to be back beyond this season. Preston Reese, Cam Buffington, Derek Weiskopf, those guys all in that class a couple of years ago together. Burke Goucher, Carson Cooney in this class, and then obviously Kason Thomas joining Julian Manson in this group in 2026 right here, right now. So the linebacker position for Iowa has been a rich, talent-laden position for the Hawkeyes. Campbell and Benson just in the recent couple of seasons, Higgins, Nick Jackson, and that linebacker play, great linebacker play, we hope, continues on with the Harrells and the Shires of the world, and obviously Julian Manson here, and Kason Thomas, and all of these other folks that are already on campus or a part of this recent signing class, and in this what will be a signing class come December. Thanks, everybody, for joining us tonight on Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live. I am your host, Josh Helmer, and Taylor Hink, who is always hanging out with us, T. Hink. He is asking about Chris Meglio. Chris Meglio tonight, he's dealing with the unfortunate car problems that are sometimes prevalent in our lives. So he's dealing with some real life stuff tonight. So he just couldn't make it on time tonight. And anyways, Chris Meglio, he hasn't made the decision to step away. There's no secrets that are being kept on Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live tonight, but you won't be with me this evening. So if you wonder where Chris is at, that's what's going on there. This is our call-in show. So every Monday night, we'll hang out with you right here, Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live. Iowa at the voice of college football. Anywhere you consume podcasts, you can find us. And obviously on YouTube, just search Iowa at the voice of college football. And we're coming to you live every Monday night at 6 o'clock, Thursday nights as well at 6. But please check us out, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, iHeart. And like this video, like this broadcast, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, and help us keep growing this thing. Appreciate you guys doing that out there. But thanks for you guys being here tonight. Good to see you. CJ Smith is in the house. Thanks for the show. CJ, good to see you. Kelvin Fisher is hanging out. Julian Manson could be like a Chad Greenway. Thomas maybe like a LeVar Woods. Well, if you get a Greenway-LeVar Woods combination, I mean, we're talking about quite a 1-2 in that regard. Brandon KJ says, wait, what happened to Mark, who used to run this channel? Mark Rogers he's the czar of the voice of college football. Brandon, he's still around. He still does the Monday show alongside Corey Bratta. So those guys, they still always do the Monday show. So he hasn't disappeared. We've just added another show to this Iowa channel to hopefully give you a little bit more Hawkeyes content throughout the spring, the summer, and obviously throughout the football season. So he's still along doing his thing with Corey Bratta. He still does the college football specific show. So Mark has not been displaced by any stretch of the imagination. But I'm Josh Helmer, and Brandon, happy to have you hanging out with us tonight. And yes, thank you, CJ, for jumping in there and passing that along. Thor, no, Chris did not decommit for a better NIL deal. Well, hey, thanks everybody for hanging out with me tonight. This, again, is our call-in show. So I've tossed into the chat. We'll do this every Thursday night at 6 o'clock. And basically the way this works is you want to jump in and talk something Hawkeye sports related. We opened here tonight discussing the Julian Manson commitment for the Iowa Hawkeyes. So the Iowa class now has grown by a couple in recent days, and I think they've gotten a couple of really good linebackers now in this class. You went and you got both of your top in-state targets at linebacker, Kason Thomas out of Sioux City and Julian Manson out of Iowa City West. I think both of these two guys could be big-time playmakers for the Hawkeyes down the road. And let's see. In recent days, you added Ronnie Hill, the defensive back, Sterling Heights, Michigan. That's in that Detroit metro area. If you're wondering, hey, where is Sterling Heights? Ronnie Hill out of basically Detroit. Sawyer Jezierski, the defensive tackle, a little bit before that. So let's see, in the span of essentially a couple of weeks here, you waited a long time from Gene Riordan's commitment back at the end of April 21st, for this last little wave of commitments for the Hawkeyes. And we all lived one decommitment with Cash Herrera in that span of days, weeks, months here. But you've picked up for commitments in the last couple of weeks, beginning with Jezierski, Hill, Thomas, Manson, and they're all on the defensive side of the football, joining Marcelo Vitti, the other Detroit defensive back in this class. So all of a sudden, the Hawkeyes putting together a nice little defensive haul. That's now 12 commitments in this class. The team recruiting rank, I'm looking at Rivals at the moment. It's 52nd there, but different depending on where you look. Higher than that. On threes, a little bit more positive about what Iowa has done in this recruiting class so far. Your offensive line heavy in this class already. You've added Carson Nielsen. That was the first commit more than a year ago. Owen Linder, Hudson Parliament, Colin Witters, and then Gene Riordan, who we talked about just a moment ago out of Illinois. So already those 5 offensive line commits in this class for the Hawkeyes, and now you've started to really bolster up the defensive side of the football. So Coach Phil Parker, Seth Wallace, they got to be happy about what's been going on the past couple of days. Well, again, this is your opportunity to jump in, sound off. We don't have to talk strictly Iowa football or Iowa basketball, Iowa athletics, but that's typically what this channel is all about. If you want to talk something college football, big picture related, that's certainly the floor is open for you to do just that as well. So one more time, I'll share the StreamYard link, and basically you just jump in backstage this call-in show, and whoever wants to jump in line first, hop right in, and we'll start talking Iowa Hawkeyes football, basketball, you name it, on this, our weekly 6 o'clock call-in show. So until somebody jumps in and wants to break the ice and talk Hawkeye football or basketball or you name it, I'll just keep rolling along with some of the other items that are out there. CBS Sports recently ran down its best and worst case scenarios for every Big Ten team. Some true summer content for us here. And Iowa's best case scenario, according to CBS Sports, this was from Tom Fornelli. He's got Iowa at 10-2. That's the best case scenario for the Hawkeyes. And he wrote this about the best case scenario unfolding for Iowa, where you go 10-2. Quote, Mark Gronowski puts an end to the Iowa quarterback curse and gives the Hawkeyes a balanced, efficient offense. The defense gets back to 2022 levels of dominance and forces 1 billion turnovers, leading to an upset win over either Penn State or Oregon, maybe both, at Kinnick Stadium. The Hawkeyes currently at plus 730 to reach the college football playoff, according to FanDuel Sportsbook, to make the 12-team field. And Kirk Ferentz signs a 10-year extension. So that is the best case scenario for Iowa, according to CBS Sports' Tom Fornelli. His worst case scenario, I mean, he really went off the deep end here. Iowa finishes 4-8, and I kind of feel like Tom Fornelli, who I like and I think does a really good job at CBS, I kind of think he took the low-hanging fruit here with at least this portion of the write-up. He says the offensive gains seen last year disappear without Caleb Johnson, and the Hawkeyes once again find themselves struggling to score 10 points per game on offense. The defense continues its slide toward the middle of the pack and isn't able to bail the offense out anymore. The Hawkeyes go winless on the road, including losses to rivals like Iowa State, Wisconsin, and Nebraska. After the season ends, fans learn Kirk Ferentz signed a 10-year extension in October. So he ended both with the 10-year extension for Kirk Ferentz in the best and worst case scenarios. But under the worst case scenario, you're not as happy with the 10-year extension at year's end. I just thought, look, the offensive struggles for Iowa, that's kind of a low-hanging fruit. To me, can you give me a little bit more beef in detail on that? I think if things go wrong for Iowa, maybe the left tackle position doesn't turn into what we hope it can turn into with either Lauk, or you went and you got Bryce George out of the transfer portal to try to bolster that offensive line. So I'm looking there. I actually think running back's going to be okay for Iowa, and I know that might be a crazy thing to say after Caleb Johnson departs, and he just probably authored the best season in Hawkeye history, but I just think you're in an okay place with Kamari Moulton in that backfield. Nathan McNeil, I think, did some nice things in the open spring practice. I don't expect or anticipate that he's ready for that full-time load yet, but if called upon to even be a number 2 back for the Hawkeyes, I think he can be a good number 2 back for the Hawkeyes. Defensively, corner could be a concern, obviously, though TJ Hall and Deshaun Lee, they were a part of that defensive contingent that met with the media today, and it sounds like Deshaun Lee has really taken the film work to heart. TJ Hall said some positive things today with his meeting with the media that basically to stop putting as much pressure on himself and just do what he's being asked to do in the defense. So that feel how you want to feel about it. I take that as encouraging that somebody like TJ Hall is saying, you know what, maybe I made this harder than it was supposed to be in the past, trying to go make the superstar play at every single turn. I need to do what's asked of me. Trust that Phil Parker and this staff is putting me in a position to be successful. So I thought that was an interesting twist today. Dan is hanging out with us in this again, our call-in show. And Dan, what's going on? Welcome to the program. How are you?
Hey, Josh, thanks for having me on. First-time caller, but I'm pretty familiar with the voice of college football myself. Everybody knows me as the most hated Ohio State Buckeye fan on, well, the planet.
Okay.
But I wanted to come on here and just say Iowa is a great team, as saying from Ohio State Buckeye fan, but, hearing the struggles of Iowa's team on offense, particularly with offensive issues with that tackle guard position, I feel like they need to add more guys on the offensive side of the line, especially tight end. Tight end, they've had a lot of good tight ends. Dallas Clark, George Kittle, 2 guys that come up in my name, in my thought. But at the same time, I get some extra beef on the offensive line. Because when you start playing defensive lines that are really good, but also you get the front 7 defenses where you got to really game plan for, you really got to start beefing up that offensive line, getting more guys in there. Because that's the one key that I really think Iowa needs, so they can decrease the amount of sacks they have to take per year. But that's just my opinion.
Well, and Iowa is optimistic, I think, about this offensive line going into this season. It's fair to say, Dan, I don't know how plugged in you are to what's going on with every turn of Iowa football. And, I wouldn't blame you as an Ohio State fan to not be living, breathing every single second of it. But look, the fan base was not particularly thrilled with George Barnett for the last couple of years before last season unfolded the way that it did. Iowa got back to more of what the Hawkeyes are accustomed to in terms of what they think that offensive line should look like. Caleb Johnson had a season, really a storybook season for Iowa, reset the record books with total touchdowns, rushing touchdowns, was not too far away in terms of the rushing yardage category. And that was in no small part due to the Iowa offensive line turning the corner. So I got to give Coach Barnett credit for getting things straightened out last season. You hope that you see that carry over. If you're a Hawkeye fan this year, Tim Lester, if you're an Iowa fan, you're optimistic that the offensive coordinator that you brought in last year and as the first year OC, that was a big puzzle piece to the offensive line getting straightened out a little bit. But I'm with you. I mean, look, it always starts up front in the trenches, both sides of the football. Iowa went through a couple of years that were not up to their standard offensively along the offensive line. And it needed to be better. It was better a season ago. Now they've got names like Bo Stevens, Logan Jones, Jennings Dunker, who's regarded as one of the top tackles out there in college football. T. Hink just put it in the chat. The best right tackle, according to Pro Football Focus, in Jennings Dunker coming back. So there are high expectations that this Iowa offensive line can be very good and go toe-to-toe with some of those great edge rushers, some of those great interior defensive linemen that they're just going to see in the Big Ten.
But also, the only reason I have as an Ohio State fan, I have my head on a swivel. It ain't because of Iowa. It's because of your guys' brothers across the state line. Iowa State, their front 7. I've been watching their front 7 this past year, and it's like, okay, well, their defense don't play around. And, Iowa State giving you guys problems, and it's like, okay, well, there's one thing that you guys could at least get some better work in, because Iowa State's a team that will cause you problems. But also, that's a team who went 10-2, 11-1, would have made the playoffs, but But I was talking to Levi Stenton on Iowa State, and it's like, okay, well, y'all's got a good defense, and y'all's offense is good, filling out those holes, like I said about their team previously. But I would just say that if you're someone in the staff at Iowa, build up that offensive line, get more guys in the roster that can fill out the offensive tackle, left tackle, right tackle, guard, both guards position, center, because you're gonna have to deal with a lot of guys that have front seven, front six, front fives in the defense on the defensive line. And they're going to start hammering the rock on you, and they're going to start trying to get to your quarterback, and then, the sack numbers are going to go up. So that's just kind of my one thing, giving Iowa a little advice. And also somebody who's played in the trenches, too, as an outside linebacker. So, that's just kind of my thing.
I like it, Dan. Hey, thanks for jumping in here, man. Good to see you, and enjoy your Thursday evening.
Hey, thank y'all, and go Bucks, and hopefully we'll see y'all in the next year or two.
That's right. Go Hawks. We'll see you, buddy. I guess now Buckeye Dan chiming in with us. Thanks, Dan, for jumping in there. Hawkeye fans, feel free to jump in as well. Let's talk some Iowa football tonight. Let's talk some Hawkeye athletics. I mean, I think Iowa understands the importance of the trenches, and in particular, I don't know there's many programs that value the importance of the offensive line much more than the Hawkeyes do. They have, to a fault, Iowa fans will tell you this, leaned on the run game, and so they want that offensive line to be great. They understand that it needs to be great to get where they want to go. And if you listen to Tyler Barnes talk about roster construction, I think that he is well-versed in the idea that one of the positions that you're going to invest the most heavily in, it's left tackle. So Iowa, even in this offseason, where the Hawkeyes didn't sit and go out there and just bring in, a bunch of prospects out of the portal that you would think are incredibly pricey additions just based on, recruiting rankings and sort of what you hear out there. Iowa made sure that they went and got Bryce George. That was a insurance play to some degree for Trevor Lauk and for Dotzler. They knew that they needed to beef up that left tackle position. They needed to add some competition to the offensive line, and give the Hawkeyes credit. They went and found somebody that could fit right into their plan, and that was, of course, Bryce George, who came over, has FCS experience, and was a big-time player at Ferris State. That's been the Hawkeye model, to go find maybe a player that they love at the lower levels, that maybe isn't that fellow Big Ten, SEC, Power 2 player, but somebody that they trust the evaluation. And maybe in this revenue share era, in this NIL era, they can go find and identify a player that isn't as expensive as some of the other options out there, but that Iowa feels really good can come in and impact things in a hurry. You look up and down the transfer portal additions for the Hawkeyes, guys that we think can help them this season, and you can kind of see that in all of them, right? Bryce George from Ferris State. Bryce Hawthorne comes over from South Dakota State alongside Mark Gronowski. Jonah Pace comes over from Central Michigan. Sam Phillips from Chattanooga. So all of these guys that we think have a chance to impact things for Iowa this season, they weren't the player necessarily that every power program was in on, but Iowa understood that these are players that could come in and help the Hawkeyes this season. So back to the best case, worst case for Iowa this season. CBS Sports, Tom Fornelli, he shared his thoughts on what the best case scenario was for really everybody in the Big Ten and for Iowa. His best case scenario for the Hawkeyes, if I can cue this up properly here, Mark Gronowski puts an end to the Iowa quarterback curse, gives the Hawkeyes a balanced, efficient offense, and the defense gets back to 2022 levels of dominance. Well, I've spent many a night right here on Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live talking about the importance of Mark Gronowski. Mark Gronowski for the Hawkeyes, with the pedigree that he brings in, the championship pedigree, two-time national champion at the FCS, all of the yardage that he's accumulated, the touchdowns, both passing and running, that Gronowski accumulated while at South Dakota State. The wins, 49-6, I think, right, was the mark at South Dakota State. He the tied as the all-time winningest quarterback in the FCS ranks. Here we go. Here we go again with a quarterback in Mark Gronowski that is expected to come in here and play great quarterback play, deliver good quarterback play for the Hawkeyes in 2025. And if that happens, this being year 2 for Tim Lester, Mark Gronowski is larger for Iowa than whatever happens this season. And your hope is that Gronowski, with his ability to both run and throw the football, defenses having to respect Gronowski's ability to attack them with his legs as well, that can open some running lanes up for Kamari Moulton, for Jazz Patterson, for McNeil, for these other running backs for the Hawkeyes. This season for Gronowski, it's larger for Iowa than just 2025. And I think he's got a chance, if he's the quarterback that Iowa hopes that he is and thinks that he might be. I think he's got a chance to get Iowa in the mix to go to its first college football playoff berth. But Gronowski, after the disappointment that was Cade McNamara, and after the quarterback evals over the past decade, half decade for the Hawkeyes, Gronowski coming in this season with the expectation, the hope that surrounds him, Iowa needs him to deliver upon it. Tim Lester needs Mark Gronowski to deliver upon it in order to show these quarterbacks and these skill guys down the line that Iowa is a place where competent offense can be played, where good quarterback play can happen, where Kirk Ferentz isn't going to be 3 yards in a cloud of dust for the remainder of his tenure in Iowa City. So Mark Gronowski obviously is gigantic for the Hawkeyes this season, and he will go a long way in determining whether or not Iowa can indeed orchestrate an upset over either Penn State or Oregon. The Ducks, we have great excitement for Dante Moore. I say we, just talking in the general college football sphere out there. There's thoughts that Dante Moore is going to be a really good quarterback for the Ducks, but he's somebody that hasn't kind of been through these wars just yet. So maybe that's somebody that Iowa can go get, because they've got, though he hasn't played in the Big Ten, they've got the guy that's kind of been in that quarterback hot seat out there and has started a bunch of football games. And it needs to look like that for the Hawkeyes, for us to reconvene at year's end and have great optimism on the direction that this thing is going. I know Tom Fornelli kind of writes in jest a little bit that Kirk Ferentz signs a 10-year extension in the best case scenario at year's end, where Iowa authors a 10-2 season and Gronowski puts an end to that quarterback curse. The defense returns to levels of dominance. And I don't know that Iowa's defense was just light years away from being a very, very good defense. Obviously, a season ago, it wasn't that defense that comes up with, 25 interceptions and you feel like at every single turn can shut somebody down and get the football right back. At times, Iowa's defense, and I'm thinking about Michigan State, I'm thinking about UCLA, games that you feel like you should have been able to come away with stops, and teams that you thought you were better than. Iowa's defense a year ago showed some cracks, but it wasn't just light years away. It wasn't always a leaky faucet defensively for the Hawkeyes a season ago. So I don't know that they're as far away from dominant defense as maybe we might think. If Xavier Wampa, if he can tap into what you hope is five-star, potential, that's what he signed on as. If this move to the different safety slot can unlock some things for him, if TJ Hall, who was talking about simplifying things and just trusting the defense. If that happens, then maybe Iowa can go author a 10-2 type season. The worst case, I just don't see any way that Iowa finishes 4-8. And again, Fornelli kind of went with the low-hanging fruit here, that the offensive gains last year, minus Caleb Johnson, that all of that goes by the wayside. I've got a tough time seeing that happen. Again, Gronowski and what he is or isn't this season for Iowa is larger than this 2025 season. But I've got a hard time, even if we say that Mark Gronowski isn't this revelation, let's say, for the Hawkeyes at quarterback. Don't you have a hard time getting to the place to where Mark Gronowski isn't an upgrade from what we've seen at quarterback the last 5+ years, that he can't give you something more than Spencer Petras gave you? He can't give you something more than Cade McNamara gave you. He can't give you more than the other folks, signal callers we've seen. I liked some of what Jackson Stratton did a season ago. He obviously was thrown into the fire of the thing. So, maybe don't have the full ability to judge what Jackson Stratton could be for the Hawkeyes. But even under the worst case scenario, I feel like Mark Gronowski has to be an upgrade, right, for the Hawkeyes offensively. Now, you want him to be, again, a revelation, because that shows that, hey, to these other quarterbacks now that are on campus, if it's Hank Brown, who transferred in from Auburn, if it's Heklinski, who you brought over with Warren Ruggiero from Wake Forest, if it's Sullivan, who you signed in this last class, or if it's let's play musical chairs again this next offseason, and it's somebody out of the transfer portal again, it makes Iowa an attractive destination for a quarterback to come play there, and for skill guys to feel like they have an avenue, a pathway to the National Football League, that they have a pathway to improvement. The 4-8 scenario, though, I just have a tough time getting there with the Hawkeyes. Albany, UMass, that's 2 wins right there. At Iowa State will certainly be challenging. I would put that into the bucket of games that Iowa could lose. At Rutgers, Piscataway has not been the most challenging of venues for Iowa. That'll be a Friday night game under the lights for the Hawkeyes, but I like Iowa to win that game. Indiana is, of course, on the come up with Curt Cignetti. Fernando Mendoza comes over from Cal, and he's expected to build upon what Curtis Rourke did a season ago for the Hoosiers. So that could be challenging. Wisconsin, for me, I don't know how other Iowa fans feel out there, but under Luke Fickell, Wisconsin has to show me that Wisconsin can go beat not just Iowa, but anybody that's halfway decent in the Big Ten right now. Wisconsin, with Luke Fickell, they look like a mess. So even though that's up there where they like to jump around at Wisconsin, it's tough for me to talk myself into Iowa going and losing at Wisconsin. Penn State, Oregon, those are sandwiched around Minnesota. So that's a big 3-game home stretch for the Hawkeyes right there, where 2 of those 3 are, you would think, going to be highly ranked opponents and are the premier opponents, at least on paper, going into this season for the Hawkeyes, sandwiched around that rivalry game versus Minnesota. Minnesota, another team that in the rival category, trophy game category, that, right now it's tough to talk yourself into Minnesota being all that great. Obviously, the season could paint a different picture, but right now you don't feel that way going in. So I guess what I'm getting at is, how do you paint me 8 losses, even if things go poorly for Iowa this season? The Hawkeyes have shown you that minus a competent quarterback, minus a competent offense altogether, and I know that was with a couple of historic defenses for Phil Parker in tow, but they've shown you that they can go win you 8, 9, at times 10+ games minus an offense. So now you're trying to paint a picture for me where Iowa goes 4-8. I got a really tough time getting there that happens. Games that you would toss in that could go the wrong direction bucket. at Iowa State, Indiana for me, Penn State, Oregon, at USC, and I guess Nebraska and Wisconsin because they're rivalry games on the road. But look, you're not losing all of them. Josh Helmer here, hanging out with you, Iowa, at the voice of college football. You can follow me at Josh on Ref. Please, like and subscribe to this video. Hit that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop, to let you know when we go live right here on the voice of college football, Iowa, at the voice of college football. We're here every Monday at 6 o'clock to talk Hawkeye athletics with you. And Thursday nights are our call-in shows. So if you still want to jump in here and talk about this Iowa football schedule and what's the worst case scenario, is there any scenario where you can talk yourself into Iowa goes 4-8 and it doesn't involve Mark Gronowski getting hurt and a couple of other key players getting hurt? I don't see that one. Worst case scenario for me would probably be 6-6, 7-5. And under the wrong scenario, that could be in play. I don't think that's what happens for Iowa this season, but I could at least get talked into that's a possibility for Iowa. 4-8, I got a real tough time getting there. Okay, some of your comments out there. Logan jumps in. I just wanted to say I'm turning 24 this Sunday, and I like listening to you guys, all Hawkeyes. Logan, first of all, happy early birthday to you. Hope it's a great Sunday, 24th to you. You are incredibly, incredibly young. You have so much excitement in store. So many of your best days are in front of you. So, I know when I turned 24, 25, 26, you start thinking, oh my gosh, I'm getting so much older. You're not. You're still in the prime of your youth right there. So happy early birthday to you. Brandon, hey, thanks for being in the house. Nice to meet you virtually on Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live. First time tuning in since the season ended. We're kind of in that point, aren't we, where, you're 65 days out and the football season is starting to kind of feel a little bit more real, which is exciting. The defensive players for Iowa, TJ Hall, I think Jaden Harrell was a part of that group, Deshaun Lee, and there was one more. Was it Aaron Graves, who I guess is, speaking of milestones, it's not a birthday. He's about to get married. 3 Hawkeyes are about to get married in short order here in the next couple of weeks. But they all met with the media today. So they're in the midst of summer workouts, which means that, this thing's going to start getting here pretty quick before we know it. One more here from Brandon. If Iowa wins 10 and makes the playoff, Kirk retires. Yeah, the Hall of Fame situation for Kirk Ferentz, that picture has changed. Now you had the swell of support for Mike Leach to be eligible for the Hall of Fame. And so the Hall of Fame group tweaked that thing recently, readjusted the criteria to get in. And right now, Kirk Ferentz, he's eligible for the Hall of Fame just based on that criteria. He would, I believe now upon retirement, would be immediately eligible to go in. So I always, in the back of my mind, Brandon, wondered if the Hall of Fame could be a motivating factor for Kirk Ferentz to keep going. And now he's crossed that threshold. But more and more you see stories and articles that I don't know that he's right here near the end. I think everybody's like, well, wait a second. This is year 27. Kirk Ferentz is about to be 70. You've got revenue sharing. You've got the NIL era. Surely he's about to be finished, right? And look, I'll be the first to admit that maybe I'm falling hook, line, and sinker for good PR and good public comments from Kirk Ferentz. But Scott Docterman just had the story, I think this morning or yesterday, where Kirk Ferentz is again excited about this new challenge that exists in college football. His contract runs through the 2029 season. I think that could be a milestone moment maybe for Kirk Ferentz, because that would be the even 30-year mark for Kirk. I don't know, again, how in he is on Hall of Fame criteria, on making it to an even 30 years at the helm. He says he feels good. Tyler Barnes a couple of weeks ago throughout this offseason said Kirk Ferentz still works out every single day, or every day that he comes into the office. So he is not your, I guess, typical 70-year-old just from a how his body feels standpoint. He still seems very, very sharp. So all of that is to say, I don't know that the end is particularly or needs to be near for Kirk Ferentz, which is kind of crazy to say, but is a credit to Kirk Ferentz. He's obviously got this thing on autopilot for the most part, where you can pencil in Iowa for 7, 8+ wins every single season. And if they start navigating this revenue share era, this transfer portal era, a little bit better than at times they have in the past, I think they've started to dip their toe more successfully into the transfer portal. Cade McNamara, as Kirk Ferentz has pointed out, they basically wound up with damaged goods. And Kirk didn't say that. Those are my words. They basically wound up with damaged goods with Cade McNamara. But Kirk said, you don't always know what you're going to get out of the transfer portal and some of those medical situations. You can't totally plan for that. I would maybe push back just a smidge against that with Cade McNamara, who did come in having had the knee issue. There's concerns, I guess you could say, with Mark Gronowski on that stability injury front, though it sounds like the shoulder cleanup this offseason has gone well. And I'm going to be optimistic that you're not going to get a repeat of the injury situation and kind of, again, maybe getting damaged goods like you got with Cade McNamara. You can't bank on that's just going to happen again with Mark Gronowski. But all of that to say that Kirk Ferentz at one time, I think when this transfer portal situation opened up, I don't know that he would have brought Cade McNamara in from Michigan. So he's starting to play that game a little bit better. He's adjusting to this era of college football. And again, as wild as it is to say, I don't know that the end is immediately in sight. It's our call-in show. We got about 13 minutes or so left with us here on Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live. I'm Josh Helmer. Please like, subscribe, share this broadcast, share the channel so folks know that every Monday at 6 o'clock, every Thursday at 6 o'clock, we're here talking Hawkeyes with you, Iowa at the Voice of College Football on YouTube. And we're here to take your comments, your calls. T-Hink in the house. He joins us here. T-Hink, what's up, man? Good to see you.
How's it going?
Oh, it's good, man. Just enjoying a Thursday night as we tick-tock toward college football season. What's up, man? How are you?
Oh, living the dream. It's been pretty good today. It's been rainy here in Iowa, so not a whole lot going on.
Rainy here in OKC as well. We just had a storm rip through as we speak here. I'm waiting for one of these broadcasts at some point in time. Like we're going to have like a power outage. Something terrible is going to happen. We'll be live on the air and we'll get true, tornado alley weather at some point in time. Hasn't happened yet. We're in good shape so far tonight, but what's on your mind, man?
You were talking about the low part of the year. I don't think Iowa loses or wins only 4 games. I think bare minimum would be 6 if they would slump, but I don't think that's even 6 is even crazy to even say, because when was the last time Iowa even won just 6 games? Like, I don't even remember the last time Iowa had a losing record, and I'm 24 years old, so I'm not sure when the last time Iowa even had a losing record.
Yeah, Iowa's one of a few programs that is on a stretch of, let's just say, 9 seasons in a row with winning records, and it might be more than that, but they're part of a select group that, hasn't had a losing season in quite some time. So in that look, I know that understandably fans want more. You want a Big Ten championship contender. And I don't think that's unfair for Iowa fans to demand or hope for that. Maybe demand is the wrong word, but I think to dream, to envision that Iowa can be a Big Ten championship contender, I see no reason that Iowa should set the standard lower than that. Now that you're in this revenue share model And it seems like Iowa has a grasp on the NIL and transfer portal situations. There's no reason that one of these years Iowa can't get into the Big Ten championship mix. And let's hope it's right here, right now with Mark Gronowski. They've certainly, though, been very consistently a winner in college football and in the Big Ten. The Big Ten West was, yes, a helper in that regard for a number of years, but that's not to take any credit away from Iowa. They still went out, played the football games, and put themselves in that select category. There's plenty of other teams out there that against the schedules that Iowa has faced over the last however many years, they wouldn't be able to say that they were a winning team every single year. So, no, I'm with you, man. It's tough for me to wrap my mind around the idea that the wheels are going to fall off so dramatically that you win 4 games.
Right. Four games to me is just crazy. I just think that's wild to even think that 4 games would be even something Iowa would even do. But have you seen? I was listening to another podcast last week or this Tuesday. I think it was Corey and Mark Rogers of the Voice of College Football. They were going over the 2026 schedule, and not to get too far ahead, but that is more like a Big Ten West type of schedule, in my opinion. You throw in your West Coast school, but then you're getting Michigan and Ohio State in 2026. So, and then you're getting back Illinois and Northwestern games. So I think it's more like going back towards the Big Ten West, but I don't know if you've looked that far.
I'm looking as we speak. So you open versus Northern Illinois. You, of course, will get Iowa State at home next season. Northern Iowa. Then you go to Illinois, and Illinois will be in – it's tough to project them, right, because Luke Altmaier's the quarterback, and people like him, and they got some national juice going into this season. People think Illinois is going to be good because they, return quite a bit, as much or more than just about anybody in the league, just from, starters and production standpoint, and the quarterback, which is always one of the biggest ingredients in all of it. So, but they won't have Altmaier next season. And so that is that's good news. The last trip to Champaign was that was the 9-6 game, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh my God, that game. Holy smokes.
I think it was the game where we were going to win if Riley Moss they don't overturn the fumble and he runs it all the way back. That was that game. I think that was the last time I went there and lost, was 9-6. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a brutal. I was stuck in the offensive doldrums loss. It's like, how have we lost this game? But Sure enough. So you go to Illinois, Nebraska, that's in Kinnick, Ohio State you host. That's going to be a ton of fun. Purdue you host, Wisconsin you host. You go to Michigan, and we'll see what Sharon Moore has this season, right? You got a young quarterback, we think, in Underwood that's going to be the starter there, and he'll take his licks, and he'll grow throughout the course of this season. We'll find out how much any of us do or don't believe that he's the guy for them. And, Michigan's got that early game down in Norman versus OU, which is kind of a compass game for each of those two programs, not just for this year, but, for 26 and beyond. So tough to say what Michigan is going to be. Obviously, anytime you go to Ann Arbor, that's challenging. But then at Minnesota, Northwestern, and at Washington, who it's tough to get a read on right now. So I see a lot of games that I don't know what to think about just yet. But I don't see Ohio State's obviously going to be big time tough at home. Yep. But at Michigan, maybe. The rest of it, you should feel pretty good about, sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was looking through it. I'm like, at initial glance, I'm like, that kind of looks daunting. But after looking through it, I'm like, it's hard telling with other schools what they'll have. So as of right now, teetering on difficulty, but I think this schedule might be a little bit difficult. I'm not sure, but.
So you're ready to put our man, Mr. Luke Fickell, on the hot seat?
Oh yeah, I think if he doesn't get to 6 wins this year, I think he's fired.
Yeah. It has not gone very well for Fickell, and he, comes in. He's the quarterback whisperer, and quarterback play's not been good for Wisconsin. which, hey, does not hurt my feelings at all. Kind of nice seeing Iowa put the biggest beat down on the Badgers in, 40 some odd years last season. So as long as he wants to keep coaching in Wisconsin, Luke Fickell has my vote to stick around as long as he wants.
Same here. They've always had our number since I've been around. So if he wants to stay there as long as possible, I like beating them 42-6. So that was good last year. So.
Well, T. Hink, man, thanks for jumping in, buddy. Hope you have a great rest of the Thursday, and appreciate it, man.
No problem. I'll be on next week, and go Hawks.
Go Hawks, baby. See you, dude. That Mr. T. Hink, you'll get familiar with T. Hink. He's always hanging around the channel, and appreciate his support of Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live and Iowa at the Voice of College Football. Hawkeye Howard is hanging out on the road, going on vacation. Howard, where are you vacationing at? And glad to see that you're in the house, Hawkeye Howard. Hopes for a 12-0 and playoff season, but concerned about a quarterback flop like last year. Yeah, at this point for Iowa, as optimistic as I or we could be, it kind of is what it is, right? Iowa has to prove that the quarterback position, that they can get productive results over the course of a 12-game plus college football schedule. And unfortunately, that's just where we're at. So I'm hopeful that Mark Gronowski can deliver that for the Hawkeyes. Off to the Grand Canyon. Very cool. I have never been to the Grand Canyon. That is definitely a bucket list item for my wife and I. Let's see here. Thor talking about things that could lead to that worst case scenario. Poor quarterback and defensive play gets us 6-6. Yeah, defensive back play in particular, well, maybe across the board, right? Because you're waiting on Xavier Wampa to take that leap for the Hawkeyes, though, look, the move to free safety sounds like it's been positive for Xavier Wampa. We probably all, again, like many things that will break down over the next month and change before we boot this season off, next couple of months and change before we boot this thing off. That is going to be the case where you just got to see it to believe it, and that'll be the case for Xavier Wampa. But he said today that he's not caught up in the expectations of being a 5-star, whether or not that's, you take it at face value. He says that he's not thinking about it. And sounds like the move to free safety has been a positive one for Xavier Wampa. Let's hope that's the case. I really like what Kale Kolarek showed in the open practice. I think that he might surprise some people. Cohen Intringer, I know, is in that mix as well at the strong side safety. Corner, TJ Hall, I liked what he said about just playing within what the system, what Phil Parker is asking you to do. Don't try to go pick the football off every single play. Take what the game gives you. Take what the offense, what a opposing quarterback is giving you, and just don't give up the chunk plays. I thought that sounded like growth from TJ Hall. Again, go show me on Saturday. And Deshaun Lee says he's been a film junkie and is taking more pride in it than ever before, which is good. Let's see, a couple of comments more from you, but I'm with you. I mean, look, the defensive backfield defensively is the biggest question mark, I think, for this group. Linebacker could be a question mark as well for the Hawkeyes, but you've proven recently that you can replace Campbell, you can replace Benson, and, oh, by the way, Jay Higgins, who waited and bided his time, he can morph in to one of the best backers in the Big Ten, one of the best backers nationally that you can go pluck Nick Jackson away from Virginia if you need to. Iowa this offseason, they didn't do that. They didn't go find a linebacker. They went and found some other players out of the transfer portal. They went and got a Shaheed Barrows. They got Judkins, though I don't think he's a safety that you expect is going to factor in straight away. They got, Hawthorne and Pace up front defensively to help that defensive line rotation. So I think it's telling that Iowa didn't go get a linebacker. I think that's positive if you're optimistic about what Jaden Harrell and Carson Shire can be for the Hawkeyes. I think if they Iowa, if Seth Wallace, if they were nervous about what that situation was going to look like at linebacker, I think they would have went and gotten someone. So if there's questions to be had defensively, it's probably yes in the defensive backfield. I love the defensive line for the Hawkeyes. Llewellyn, I think, has the chance to be a star this season in the Big Ten and for Iowa. Aaron Graves, I think, is a big-time defensive tackle, and we know what Ethan Hurkett brings to the table. Thor, one more comment. Last year, I thought we were deep, but we ended up starting a fifth-string walk-on transfer. Well, that at quarterback, you're saying you thought we were deep at quarterback, and all of a sudden Jackson Stratton is playing. Though Jackson Stratton wound up being a pretty doggone good fifth-string walk-on transfer, mind you. Getting some PT and blowouts were key for these linebackers, and they've said as much. Well, let's see. We're just about out of time. Our one thing out the door, we do this every single show, and normally Chris Meglio's hanging out with me, but he had some car issues tonight, so couldn't make it. One thing out the door, I was so disappointed to see the injury situation return for Caitlin Clark. After dealing with the left quadriceps injury that kept her out for 5 games, she once again is dealing with a groin injury now. The Indiana Fever season just feels like, I don't want to say that it's in turmoil, but it certainly is in part because of Caitlin Clark's injury status. It's not unfolding the way that many of us hoped or thought that it might in Caitlin Clark's sophomore campaign in the WNBA. It's a long season, and you don't have to be all that great to get into the dance, to get into the WNBA playoffs. So by no stretch of the imagination am I hitting the alarm button on Caitlin Clark, on the Indiana Fever, but my eyebrows are perked up a little bit as to, hey, what's going wrong there? DeWanna Bonner was supposed to be this great free agent acquisition, a near max acquisition for the Fever at $200,000. That's right there near the maximum salary that you can give out in the WNBA, and she wanted out. So they waived her, though, getting McDonald back is, I'm sure, exciting for Fever fans. I'm excited about that, but disappointed to see that Caitlin Clark is injured with a groin, and we'll see how long her absence is this time for the Indiana Fever. Taking a bite out of our WNBA viewing summer. We need a healthy Caitlin Clark. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us on Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live. Hopefully we accomplished a little bit of something tonight. Fun to have Dan jump in. Appreciate T. Hink jumping in. And let's see, all of you, Thor, Hawkeye Howard, who else in the chat tonight? Kelvin, you're always in the house. Great to see you. Brandon, CJ, Logan, all of you, thanks for being with us tonight. And hope to see you again on Monday night for Iowa at the Voice of College Football, Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live. Everybody have a great rest of your Thursday nights. Go Hawks, and we'll talk to you next week. So long, everybody.